Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting how to sniff butts. And I'm sipping on some black tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, raw sienna, which I will probably call yellow, burnt sienna, which I like to call rust. I make up my own colors as I go along. Mars black, and ultramarine blue. And of course you could switch up those colors if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'll be using for some drawing. And then I have 3 brushes from my personal brush line, which is Michelle the Painter brushes. I have a 3/4 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a 1/4 inch wide flat bristle brush, and I have a number 2 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And then down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the same type and size of the canvas to the same type of paints and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting our background. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm going to use are white, blue, and brown. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a custom soft bluish grayish color that I'll be using as, we'll call it the wall color of the room. So I'll be using that, and then I'm going to be using a little bit extra white up in this top left hand corner so we can imply that there might be a lamp on our light source. So we'll have it lighter here and it'll fade down into our custom color. I'm going to be painting with my large brush, and I'm going to show you how I got to my custom color here. So this is the color that I'm going for. How I got to that was I used blue, brown, and a little bit of white, and then just spun it together. You could really make this into any custom color that you would like to have your wall color be. It can be lighter or darker or bluer or purple or green, whatever color you want that to be. And then once I've got that color established, what I'm going to do is, with my dirty brush, I'm going to be picking up white paint. So I've got just whatever remnants of the blue I had on my brush plus white paint. I'm going to start up in this top left hand corner. So this is going to give me the illusion of maybe a light on or something, and it's going to allow me to give the appearance that this little canine has something to read the book with that will illuminate it. And then once I've got that on there, you can see the darker custom color is starting to release itself. I'm just getting this to blend in before I start picking up that custom color, just kind of going back and forth like this to get it on here. Now I'm going to pick up my custom blue, and I'm just going to get this to blend in before I start going kind of more aggressively throughout the rest of the canvas. I want to get this to blend in pretty well. So I'm just overlapping the light tone with this custom color that we made, and you might find that yours doesn't blend as smoothly as mine appears to. And if that's the case, you can always do a second layer. So feel free, I might even end up doing a second layer after it dries if the blend isn't as smooth as I had wanted it to be. I'll just come back and do a second coat on it, and then it will look nice and smooth for me. Sometimes I can see brush marks that I'm not fond of, so doing a second coat would definitely help to smooth out a blend and get rid of any unwanted brush marks. And then I'm just finishing up the entire area with this custom color, and I continued to use that kind of circular brush stroke or curved brush stroke just as I was getting my way out of that blend. But once you get down towards the bottom or that right hand side, you can certainly use almost any brush stroke that you want to get this to get the color on, because it'll be in essence kind of a flat color at this point. And once it dries, the flat color, you most likely won't detect any brush marks or gradient. You're past the gradient point, so this should just be a solid color down in through here. And if you wanted to, you could also paint the edges or the sides of your canvas. That always makes your painting or your project look nice and complete. So you can certainly do that if you'd like to. And then once you're done this, if you want, you can do that second coat. But if you feel like you're all set, we are going to be using our piece of chalk for the next step. So once you've got this done, you could put your large brush away, take out your piece of chalk, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be drawing an outline for our dog in the book. I'm going to be using my piece of chalk to draw my outline. You could certainly use any writing or drawing utensil that you would like, whatever's comfortable for you. I do recommend before you start this step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry. Or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So what I'm going to be doing is guiding you through a series of markers so we can draw some very basic shapes that we'll be able to utilize during the painting in process. So we're not going to be doing any fine-tuned detail here, just making some real generic shapes so we can have some fun painting. I'm going to start with the outline of my book first, and then we will draw things off of that. I'm going to have my book really large. It's going to take up a good amount of the bottom portion of my canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find myself about halfway, left to right, top to bottom. This is about my midway or my center point of my canvas. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down about 2.5 inches and over to the right, I would say about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, somewhere in through there. And then what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to come over to the right from that about 2.5 inches, make myself another marker. I'm going to connect these two with a curved line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come directly below these two markers in through here. So just travel straight down to the bottom of your canvas from this one. And then I'm going to go into the right, maybe about 1/4 of an inch for that one. And then what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to come just directly straight down from it. I'm giving myself a little bit of a taper down at the bottom by making this one come in a little bit, so that way it'll look like the book goes down farther. So a little bit of perspective. Now I'm going to connect these markers in through here, so that should be almost horizontal, and this one is just a little bit tapered in. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just something that will guide you through that process. Then on the right hand side, I'm going to come down I'm on the bottom. I'm going to come all the way over to the right hand corner and come back maybe about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, somewhere in through here. I'm going to come over from this corner almost all the way over to the edge of my canvas and then come up about 2 inches. So give myself a little bit of a marker there. I'll connect here to here and here to here. So something like this. So this one is this marker is a little bit closer to the edge of my canvas than this one down at the bottom. So just so you have a little bit of perspective on there, so it gets a little bit more narrow at the bottom. And then I'm going to take this one and connect it in through here. And then I'm going to follow the same exercise on the other side. So for the bottom marker, I'm going to come over to the left, but this time I'm about, I would say, 4 inches from the edge of my canvas. So somewhere in through here. And then on this one, I'm going to come over to the left. I'm going to go a little bit further to the left than here, so maybe about an inch further than that, and then maybe about an inch up. So somewhere in this vicinity. And then again, I will connect these. So this should be a little bit more to the left than this bottom one, and it should be higher than this one in through here. And then I'm gonna connect this to here, and this to here. And then what I'm gonna do, so that's gonna be the cover of my book. I'm gonna make the pages. I'm gonna have them converging right here in the center. I'm gonna come over to this left-hand side. I'm gonna come in up to the right, I would say about 1.5 inches, and then up about 1.5 inches, somewhere in this vicinity. I'm going to connect this with a diagonal line, and then I will connect this with a slightly curved line. It doesn't have to be wicked curved, just a little bit of a curve will work. And then I'll do the same thing over on this side. So I'm going to come in here maybe about 1.5 inches, and then up maybe about 1.5 inches, somewhere in this vicinity. Connect these two with a diagonal line, and then connect here to here with a slightly curved line, so something like this. And your book, maybe you want your book to be thinner than mine or thicker than mine. However thick you want your book to be is totally fine. I'm not quite sure how many pages would be in a book of this sort. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the dog with a basic circle for the head. So I'm going to come straight up from the center of my book in through here, and I would say I'm up maybe about 1 to 2.5 to 3 inches, somewhere in through here. And then I'm going to travel all the way up until I'm about, I would say, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch away from the top of my canvas. I want this to be kind of circular in shape, so I don't want it to be too wide or too narrow. So in order to give myself a circle, I can use anything as a measuring tool to figure out how big I made that, and I'm just going to hold my finger here. Then I can put it in the opposite direction, cross the center of it, and I can give myself 2 markers at about equal width. That will be equal, from the height that I just did that. And then I can connect them with a circular type of shape. And this will give me a pretty symmetrical circle. It doesn't have to be perfect. This just gives us a nice place to start for the dog's head and body. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to give myself, this will be the left side of the face. I'm going to come up, I would say right about in through here, and I'm going to give myself a little bit of a curved line like that. That's going to be the little muzzle nose part in through there. And then on this back side, well actually let's put the ears on first, because the back side of the dog is going to connect to the ears. So I'm going to have, you can certainly have whatever kind of ears that you want. I'm going to have some kind of little floppy ears. I'm going to come from the center of my head over maybe about 1.5 inches. This will be my left ear. My dog's head is turned a little bit, so we're only going to see the side of this one, and we'll see the full-on shape of this one. So I'm going to come like this. I'll come over to the side. This is going to come a little bit past the halfway point. If this is the halfway point down my circle, I'm going to be about 3/4 of an inch, or 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch down and out, maybe just a little bit. That'll give you the little point of the ear. And yours could be modeled after and any kind of little pepperoni that you would like. My one on the right, I'm going to have a little bit lower than this one, the tip of it. So you can kind of come over like this and then maybe drop it maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch. That'll be the tip of that one. And then this one's going to, again, we're going to see a little bit more of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and meet it into my circle in through here. And then I'm going to bring it out just a little bit like this. And I'm going to bring it over to the right in this vicinity, and then kind of curve it back around like this. So I'm going to take my paintbrush with a little bit of water on it so you can see what I just did in through there. So I gave myself more of a full ear on this side. Now I can give myself the back edge of the body. So I'm going to come up this ear just a little bit, maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and then in from here maybe about 3/4 of an inch, and then I can connect these two. This will be kind of the back of the neck and then going into the back of the body, something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a couple of paws, and we're just going to see the little tips of the paw. So I'm going to take from this corner of the book and just come down just a little bit, give myself a marker in through there, and then I'm going to give myself just 4 bumps, but I want to make the paw kind of size appropriate. I don't want it too small. I'm going to come about halfway down this side of the book. That'll be the bottom edge of it. And then I can just give myself 1, 2, 3, 4 little bumps like that. This is going to be the back side of the arm coming around. So we can just kind of put it like that. And again, if you need to see what you did, you can erase this little interior guideline like that. On the left hand side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come down from this little corner, just a little smudge in through there. And then this one I'm going to have coming again, probably about halfway down, or maybe a little bit lower, somewhere in this vicinity. I think I'm going to see this one a little bit more. I'm going to give myself 1, 2, 3, 4 bumps like that, and then I can just kind of curve this in through here. And then again, to see what I did, if I want to erase that guideline, I can go ahead and do that. And then that's all we're going to be doing for our initial drawing. You could certainly make any little tweaks that you want, and then we're going to be using our large brush for the next step. So you can put your chalk away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna be painting the base coat for our dog in our book. I'm gonna be using my large brush to paint in, but I am gonna be making a couple of custom colors, so I'm gonna use my medium brush to mix my paint. I'm gonna be using burnt sienna, raw sienna, black, blue, and white to create a couple of custom colors. I'm going to be using burnt sienna to do the ears. We'll use a custom golden tan to do the base coat for the face and the paws. We're going to use a dark blue for the book cover, and we'll use a tan for a base coat for the pages. So I have pre-mixed them, my custom colors, so you can see where I'm headed. This is going to be the tan that I use for my book pages. How I got to that is about equal parts of brown and white. And then I just spun them together. This is going to be a great base for what will appear to be white pages. This is just going to give you a nice tone to start with. So once you've got that color, I'm going to wash and dry my medium brush, and I'm going to create my custom blue color. So this is just a nice dark navy blue. I used a lot of my ultramarine blue and just a teeny tiny touch of black paint. I don't know if I said I was going to use black, but I'm using a little bit of black to make this darker. The black will very easily take over, so just use a little tiny bit at a time and blend it on in there. And if you want to have better opacity, which means you won't be able to see through your paint so much, you can add a tiny touch of white paint as well. That'll help with the opacity on it, and it'll make it less see-through or transparent, just making it a little bit darker in through here. There we go, that's working out pretty well. Adding just a little bit more blue because my black kind of took over there for a second, and then I just keep adjusting it until I get the color I want. You could, because the black does take over so easily, you could certainly test it out on your canvas. Just put a little area on there, let it dry. It will dry a little bit darker than it is when it's wet. And that way, if it does turn too dark on you, you'll know, just add a little bit more blue and white into the combination. That's looking pretty good for me. And then I'm going to make my custom golden color for my fur. This is it right here. How I got to that was burnt sienna, raw sienna, and a little, oops, it got away from me, and a little bit of white as well. What I'm going for is just a lighter version of my burnt sienna, but I don't want it to go too pink on me. That's why I added the yellow into the equation. The yellow is going to help it not turn pink. If you just go burnt sienna and white, it'll end up more like a skin color with a little bit of a pinkish hue. So the yellow helps to counteract that, or the raw sienna helps to counteract that. So those are my custom colors. I'm going to put my medium brush away. I'm going to take out my large brush, and I'm going to start with my book. I'm going to put my page color on first. So this is just the tan color, and you don't have to worry about making it perfect at this point because we are going to be doing so many different layers and things of that nature on top of this. this is just the base coat of it. So as you're going through this process, if you see streaking, or if you find that, you know, your edges aren't perfect, that's all right, because you've got lots of stuff to go on top of this in order to bring it to its final resting place. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush at this point because that section is done for me, and I'm going to be picking up my dark blue. I know that my dark blue is going to have a little bit of streakiness to it. That's just the name of the game when you're going into dark colors. So I will most likely do a second coat on it, but when I'm doing this coat, I don't want to lose these two guidelines in through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the evidence, or a little bit of the evidence of my chalk mark, or a little bit of a separation between this section and the two sections next to it. So that way, as I'm going through my painting process, I will have that information in there for me, so I don't get confused as I go through the painting process, and I will maintain some sort of guidelines for myself to go by when I get to that area. When I come over by the paws, again, I know that my paint is going to be a bit streaky at this point. I will do a second coat, but at this layer, the brush stroke doesn't matter too much, because again, I know that I'm going to be doing a second layer. So I'm going to use the brush stroke that's going to give me the edges that I want. So I used a left to right, or a horizontal brush stroke up at the top. When I'm on these sides, I'm going to use a vertical brush stroke so I can get a nice kind of clean edge to the side of the book. And then when I go to do my second coat, that will eliminate all of those brush marks for me. And again, same thing over on this side. I'll give myself this horizontal or diagonally horizontal type of line in order to give myself a pretty clean edge up and through there. Along my paws, I don't need my edge to be clean because I know I'm going to have fluffy paw fur meeting my book in these areas. So I'm just kind of going right around those little toes, those little paw toes, and then just bringing this down towards the edge. And again, especially on this blue, I will do a second coat to eliminate my streakiness. If you get a nice coat on your first go around, feel free to just leave it and not have to worry about the second coat, but I'll let mine dry, and before I start my next step, I will have put a second coat on this area. So the next area that I'm going to go ahead and tackle is my fur. I'm washing and drying my large brush right now. I'm going to do my ears first. I'm just putting a little bit of burnt sienna on my brush, and again, not terribly concerned about this being perfect because we've got dog fur that's coming on top of this, and your dog that you're emulating might be of the fluffier type or of the short-haired type. So if you definitely need or want yours to be really short and smooth fur, then you may want to, when you're around these edges, you could certainly use, if your brush is giving you fluffy edges, you could certainly use a smaller brush that will give you the smoother coat that you might be desiring. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put the other fur on. So this will be all of my lighter areas. So I just washed and dried my brush. I'm going to put that custom light golden color on, or whatever you'd like to call it. And I'm going to just go ahead and do this in through here. And if you run into wet blue paint or, you know, wet paint from the other sections, again, it's all right because we've got lots of stuff that we're going to be doing on top of these, which will help to clean up any of those spots or give you, you know, the look that you want. And again, I'm going for fluffy dog fur, or fluffy-ish, not super long dog fur, but definitely where I don't need clean edges to my dog fur parts, except for when they meet the book right there. And I know the book is going to be in front of it. So when I'm going on these edges, I'm really okay with it going outside of my chalk mark or whatever I need to. And in through this head, again, you can use any brush stroke that you want, just getting yourself a good coat on here. I do like to, when you're doing the top of like a head or something like that, if you can give it more of an organic shape as opposed to just a perfectly round shape. That'll make it look a little bit more natural as well. So those are just little tips and tricks to make, if you're painting, you know, a dog that you know, just, you know, consider that not all heads are exactly circular. Even when I'm coming down the side in through here, I know that, you know, maybe that edge might not be, you know, perfectly symmetrical. So if my brush pops out a little bit and it's got a little bit different of a shape to it, I'm all right with that. And then I'm just going to work my way around this ear. Again, not concerned about it being perfectly covered at this point. Even when I get near this book, I'm just going to kind of bring this right to the book edge just to make sure that I've got it at least touching that book edge. Even if you bump into the book edge and it overlaps a little bit, we'll be able to clean that up when we go to do the details on the dog and the book. I'd rather you bump into the book edge than to leave a gap or a big visible gap between the two, because the gap will be more difficult to cover up than just cleaning up that line of the book. So that's just another little tip for you. And then when you get this done, we are going to be using this same brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting the highlights and shadows on our book. I'm going to be using both. I think I said I was going to use my large brush, but I'm going to use both my large and my medium brush to accomplish this. What I'm in essence going to be doing is adding a little bit of shadow down at the bottom of my book cover on the exterior pages as well as on the binder. And then I'm going to add a little bit of highlight on these two, on the seam or on the corners of the book. I'll add little bits of highlights up at the top of the edge of the book and maybe a little bit of lightness maybe up in this top left-hand corner. And I think maybe a little on the edge too. And then on the pages themselves, we'll add a little bit of shadow in the interior pages in through here, and then we'll be adding highlights on the edges of the pages. I'm going to be using my dark blue, black, white, brown, and maybe some of that tan color as well, if I need to. I'm going to start with my cover of my book, and I'm going to be starting at the bottom with blue and my dark blue and a touch of black. When you do this shadowy area, I do want to caution you again that the black will very easily take over. So start with your dark blue with just a tiny bit of black, and then feel out how dark you want it, and then as you're working your way towards the top, you'll use less of the black. So I'm going to put just a teeny tiny bit of black on my brush and a little bit of my blue. So I have black and blue on my brush right now, and you can see it already turns really, really dark at the bottom. I'm telling you that black will it'll just overpower the whole situation, So then I'm just kind of I'm rubbing it down towards the bottom. Now I'm going to pick up more of my custom blue in order to get that to blend in as it goes up. And that way I've got a little bit of a darker version of my blue down at the bottom. And as I'm working my way up towards the top of my the cover in through here, I'm making sure that I have a nice coverage. I'm making sure I've got even a third coat by anything that I need to make sure that it is covered as much as I want. Even bump into that paw if you need to make sure that you have good coverage. I'm going to do the same thing on this little center strip. So a teeny tiny bit of black paint with my blue, and you could even dry brush that black on there. So again, just a teeny tiny bit on your brush will help you to get that darkness. Then pick up that the custom blue to finish it out, going all the way up to the top. Just make sure that you've got a good coverage and making sure that it blends with that darkness. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So a teeny tiny bit of black paint on my brush with that custom blue down at the bottom. Just give me a little bit of darkness down at the bottom. And now I'm just picking up my custom blue as I work my way up that, up the cover in through here, making sure I've got good coverage on my cover with my dark blue, and making all the way up to the top. Now once I've got it up to the top, it's time to start adding highlights onto it. The highlights are going to come on this left-hand side specifically because the light source is over here, and then on the little edges in through here, I've already kind of left them there so I can work my highlight on top or to use them as a guide. I'm going to wash and dry my brush to make sure that I don't have too much of that or any of that black left on it. So I just washed and dried my brush. I'm going to pick up my custom blue plus a teeny tiny bit of white paint. So conversely, the black will take over, so will the white. So I've just got a little tiny bit. I can even just tap it off on my paper towel, and then I'm going to just give myself a little highlight down these the corners of the book in through here like that. Maybe just make sure I've got it fully covered. I feel like I can still see some of my guideline underneath there. So I just added a little bit more to make sure that I cover it the way that I want to, cover the cover the way that I want to. It's gonna get stuck in my head. There we go, that's looking pretty good. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with this remnants of the blue and the white on my brush, just to get this corner or the little tippy top of the book just a little bit lighter, again, just so we can have a bit of effect from the light on that cover. And you could do the same thing up on this side too if you felt you've got a little bit of remnants on your brush, just to give yourself the essence of that. We'll do the little edge of the book in a minute after we get our pages done. I'm going to put my large brush away now, take out my medium brush. I'm going to pick up brown paint. I'm going to put these little shadowy marks on the inside of these pages in through here. So this is just a little bit of brown. I might use a touch of black in a minute, but oops, that was accident. I was gonna say I might use a little bit of black, but I accidentally picked it up, but I don't want to use it yet. I just wash my brush, pick up a little bit more of my brown, and you don't need much on your brush because this little brush is pretty firm and will pull that paint pretty far. I am kind of coming out of this corner with a little bit of a curved mark, and then I can just pull it towards the edge of the book, something like this. And you can even kind of scrub it out like this, so you've got a nice soft transition into the book itself. I'm picking up some of my tan right now just to make sure I've got a good edge over in through here, so making sure I can't see any of my background. I'll do the same when I go to do the dog face as well, to make sure that these two match well, but right now just using my tan to close off any little unpainted spots, and then I'm going to pick up white in a minute to get some nice highlights going, but just using my tan in these darker regions. There we go. And now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to pick up white. So washing and drying my brush, I'm going to pick up white to give myself some really bright highlights on the edge of this book, especially on this left-hand side. So I have white on my brush. I'm just putting it right on the edge, and I'm going to bring it back in the direction that I feel those pages would be kind of bending. So I'm going to put a lot on this tip in through here. You can even separate the pages a little bit. I just kind of tapped it so it wasn't just a straight line. And then I'm just going to pull it back. Because I'm using such a firm brush, I will get light spots and dark spots because it's kind of streaking it on me, and using that tan underneath as the kind of like a shadow color between the pages. So this type of brush will help me to create that kind of effect. And you could certainly add more or less wherever your visual preference is. It might dry a little bit darker than you had wanted. So if you need to put a second coat, feel free to do so. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So I have my white on my brush, just kind of tapping it in along this edge and through here, and then I will pull it back in that direction. Maybe this right side you make a little, not as bright as the left side, because the left side is closer to your light source, but that'll be your own personal preference. You might get doing these white pages and really dig how light they look, so you can certainly go with whatever is visually appealing to you. And then I'll put a little highlight on the edge of my book cover in a second here. I'm just getting these pages to be fully rendered, or as much as I want them to be. I'm going to pick up just a tiny bit more white on my brush, and I'm going to give myself just a little itty bitty bright spot on the edge of the book cover itself. So you could put it right along the edge, or you could leave a little bit of that blue showing. So you could put it a little bit back from the edge, whatever works for you, or whatever happens is usually just the most natural thing to happen. I'm just going to kind of skirt this along and through here. And if you felt that you wanted to use a littler brush to do this, you can certainly do that. I'm going to bring it just down this edge as well, and maybe a little bit down in through here. And again, just kind of giving the illusion that this edge of the book is being illuminated by whatever that light source is. I'm also going to put it up on here as if this is the little binder part of the book. So we're just going to kind of scoot in a little area there. I'm going to pick up some of my dark blue on my dirty brush right now just to get this to maybe take on. There we go. That feeds my painterly eye a little bit better. There we go. So I'm using blue, my custom blue plus white at this point, just so it looks a little bit different than the pages on the book. And this is giving me the edge that I want. There we go. And then we're going to be using, I think I want to pull this out a little bit further, pull out the corner of the book a little bit further. We're going to be using our small brush for the next steps. So once you've got this done, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to write the words on our book. I'm going to be using my small brush. The color I'm using is white. You could certainly use any color that you want. You can write any words that you want. I'm going to guide you through the way that I typically do a freestyle type of writing on my paintings. One of the biggest tips that I can give you, unless you want to stencil it out or draw it out and be meticulous as to your letter sizes and style, I like to kind of suggest, especially if you haven't done letter writing before, use your natural penmanship. Even if you don't like your natural penmanship a lot, that is the way that you write naturally, and you will have the most success getting it to look kind of uniform throughout the words. You can do it in your own penmanship and then make additional modifications, like put scrolls on the first letter or the capital letters or something along that line to tweak it into something more fancy. But I typically write in kind of like a block style, so that's the way I like to do my paintings. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be writing or drawing, painting with my small brush and white paint. I will be thinning out my paint a little bit so I have a nice fluidity to it, but I will also be using my medium brush to kind of give me like guidelines. You could use any straight edge, anything. You could use a ruler or just a piece of paper or something to give you kind of the bottom edge to your letters or words, and that will keep them similar in size. So I'm going to take my my paintbrush and I dipped it in water, and I'm going to thin out a little bit of my white paint so it's almost like an ink consistency, and it's going to give me a better way of kind of creating these letters with nice clean edges to them. So I'm going to have how to sniff butts ... and then the little tagline underneath is and get away with it. So I'm going to start my first word somewhere in through here. I've got, and again, you could certainly plan it out if you wanted to with a pencil or whatever works for you in order to get it done the way that you want to. But I'm going to just kind of do it like this, and I usually will do multiple layers so that way I don't have to worry about perfect execution on the first layer. I really just worry about getting it on there and putting those letters in the way that I want them and in the size that I want them. And then I can certainly come back and do, clean up lines or make one letter bigger or smaller, whatever I want to do. So that's looking pretty good for that. Then I'm going to go on to the word sniff. So I'm going to have, I just want to make sure I give myself enough room for my last word here. So, well, I think I'm going to put sniff somewhere right around here looks pretty good. I'm going to put, and the good thing about the word sniff and the word butts is they both have the same number of letters, so I can kind of line up those two words with one another. And I'm trying to keep my letters in similar height, but you know, it's definitely not going to be perfect because I am just not caring whether or not it is perfect. So I'm just going to pretend like it was a handwritten kind. Oh, and then when you move down to the next line, just make sure whatever utensil you're using doesn't have wet paint on it, because that can easily screw up your whole thought process. So I think I'm going to have this one somewhere in this vicinity, and again, just using my I thinned out my paint with water, but you could certainly thin yours out with liquid medium or water, whatever works for you. So, oh, and try not to misspell things, which I and customers of mine have done on many occasions. You can't, you know, obviously you can fix it if you need to, but as I'm writing on the word but, it's easier if you don't screw up the spelling. And then I'm going to do just a little dot, dot, dot. And then the bottom, I think I'm just going to kind of go for this without my straight utensil, because I think I will have more success just going for it. It's because there's tinier letters. So I'm going to say, and getting away with it. So I'm going to put, and I'm just kind of following the line above it and trying to, and get away with it. I just want to make sure that I do the words. I don't even know if I can talk while I'm doing this. And get away. Hold on, I need to reload my brush. Reloading my brush frequently helps me to keep my get away. Sorry, I obviously can't talk when I'm doing this. Away. And two more words and we got it. With, here we go. With, I can't believe this is one of those times I didn't know I wasn't going to be able to talk while I was doing this. With it. Oops, we need a little dot on the I, space for the dot, this, and an exclamation point. There we go. And then if you want to do a second layer on it, just to make sure that you've got your letters as clean as you want, feel free to do so. We're going to be using this same small brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our eyes and our nose. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors that I'm going to use are black, brown, rust, yellow, and white. I think that's all I'm going to be using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting my eyes and my nose in place with black paint, and then we're going to, we'll do them kind of in conjunction. We'll do the eyes. While they're drying, we'll go do the nose, and then we'll come back and do some details on the eyes, and then we'll do the details on the nose. Just know that you can certainly model your dog eyes and nose after whatever dog you would like to represent. I'm going for a nice kind of generic, either like golden retriever type of yellow Labrador kind of dog, but you can certainly model yours after whatever you like. I'm having mine with its head tipped a little bit, as if it's looking kind of down at the book to the this way. So I'm going to have the eyes a little bit to the left. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black paint. I don't need a lot on my brush, and you can even use it with a little bit of water on your brush, just to give you a little bit of fluidity, to give yourself the where you want the eyes to go. I'm going to have them kind of lined up with the bottom tips of the ears. I'm going to have my first one is going to be almost directly up from the center of my book. So I'm going to come directly up from the center of my book to about the height of my ear, and I'm over to the right just a little bit. I'm going to create myself this little bit of a oval type of a shape to start. I'm just going to kind of color it in, and then once I've got that oval shape, I want to modify it a little bit. I'm going to bring down this left corner in through here like that. I'm also going to bring up the top kind of edge of the eye in through here. So that's going to give it a little bit more of a traditional type of shape and a little bit more expression on the eye as well. The next eye, and we're seeing the whole eye on this side. The next eye I'm going to have, we're just going to see it at a little bit of an angle. So the muzzle of the nose, of the dog nose, is somewhere in through here. And the other eye is going to sit a little bit behind the muzzle of that eye. So I'm going to come to the left, very, again, kind of in line with the tip of my ear, and I'm really close to the edge of my canvas. And it's going to be a little bit more narrow than this one. So I'm going to take it, and I'm going to have my oval type of a shape is going to be about as high as this one, but it's going to be more narrow in width. And I'm just going to kind of color this in. And again, I have just a thinned out version of black paint on my brush. So there's going to be that oval type of a shape, but I'm going to bring up this little same thing that I did up here. I'm going to bring up a little bit in through there. I'm also going to bring down a little bit down in through here. I do want to make sure that it is kind of big enough. I think I need this to be out just a little bit more in through here. I want to make sure that it definitely looks like it belongs on the same dog. So I just brought that out just a little bit more. Yeah, that makes me a little bit happier. There we go. Now I'm going to have my nose, and again, it's kind of tipped a little bit. So I'm going to have my nose in through here. So if you just kind of travel down from the corners of the eye and then just bring it in just a little bit, this is going to be in where I have my nose. So this is going to be, I think I need to reload my paint so I have enough paint on my brush. There we go, reloaded it, and I'm going to have it in through here. And I like to, especially on like noses, give real soft edges to it on animals, so that way I'm not fighting with something that looks like it's just drawn on there. This will allow the skin and the fur all to kind of work itself into each other in a more natural type of a way, as opposed to just a solid oval or circle type of a shape. You can certainly do solid color on the inside, but when you get to those edges, really just try and keep it soft, and that will help you to build that information. And because I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, you can certainly see through the paint and see some of that background. I'm also going to put a little kind of dip down in through here as if it's going down towards the mouth. So I just kind of pulled down a little piece in through there. So that's looking pretty good to me. I'm going to let that dry for a minute. I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a little detail around those eyes, and then we'll put some detail in them. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of brown on my brush, and I'm going to give myself these little darker type of pieces of fur around that eye. This is, again, just really loose what I'm doing here. So it is going to emulate more just pieces of fur around that eye. I don't have to do too much, just a little bit in through there. I'll bring in a little bit of my burnt sienna as well in a minute, but right now, again, I just picked up more of my brown. Going to do the same thing over on this eye. This eye is going to have, or this side of the face is going to have a lot of the light from the lamp or whatever that light source is in the room on it. So I know that I don't necessarily have to go too much there. Now I'm going to pick up a bit of my burnt sienna to do, I have wet paint on my hand, to do the same thing over and through here. Just bring in a bit of this additional color around those eyes, so the eyes will have lots of character and dimension in them. And if you do too much, or it's not quite the coloring that you had hoped it to be for whatever dog that you're representing, you can certainly modify it a little bit. I'm picking up a little bit more burnt sienna to go ahead and do the same thing over on this side, just pulling just a little bit in through that surrounding area. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of my raw sienna, my yellow. So I have a little bit of raw sienna on my brush. I'm going to start the colored part of the eye. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a portion that's going to be the pupil for the eye. So I've got the raw sienna on it right now, and I'm just kind of giving myself a little bit of an area. The pupil tells the story as to where the eye is looking. So I'm going to kind of leave that pupil in the center a little bit, or maybe even down a little bit, so it looks like it's looking at the book. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of the raw sienna, the yellow, to give myself a little bit on this side. I do need to darken up those pupils a little bit. So I'm picking up a tiny bit of black because I feel like they're not dark enough yet. So I just picked up a little bit more of that black to give myself that pupil. And you can make the colored part of the eye as bright as you want. So if you have a light-eyed dog and want to represent that, feel free to do so. I'm just going for a nice yellowish type of tone. I just picked up a little bit more of the raw sienna just so I can actually see it a bit more in through there. There we go. That's looking good to me. I'm going to put more details on it in a second, but while that's drying, I'm going to go down to my my nose and work on my nose for a minute here. My nose, I'm going to do something similar, which is leaving my nostrils nice and dark. I'm going to pick up a bit of burnt sienna right now to start my nose. So I'm going to be using a stippling or dotting type of paint technique to get the colored part of my nose on. So I'm just dotting my burnt sienna. This is going to give me a nice color variation, almost like a pink skin type of color to the nose. So this is just burnt sienna being tapped in this stippling way. I'm leaving some area for the nostrils in through there, and then I definitely want this to just kind of blend out a little bit into that darker, or to the edges where it's going to meet the fur. So I'm just kind of tapping it. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white on my dirty brush. So I have white on my dirty brush. I'm going to give myself these little bright little wet shiny marks on the edge of the nose, especially on this left hand side. And you again might find that you want yours to be lighter or darker. I'm in essence putting this where I feel that the nose would be popping out the most. So maybe something like this. I do want to put a little bit on these little nostril parts in through here. So I'm just kind of using the remnants on my brush and tapping in where I feel that the lighter areas would be. And as you go through your process, you might find that, oh my God, I did too much, it's too dark, or it's too light. So just adjust it accordingly. If you feel like it's too dark or that nostril is too big, bring it in a little bit. If you feel that it's too light, then bring back some of your black or your a gray color, or whatever color you want your nose to be. And when we go to do the fur around the face, this will look a whole lot better as well. So just kind of giving a little bit more information here with a little bit brighter of a color. And then I'm going to go back up to those eyes. And again, this is going to all fade into the fur and all that stuff. But this is looking pretty good for a start in through here. And then I'm going to go ahead and go up to the eyes. So I just want to add a little bit more information. I'm picking up a tiny bit of black paint to make sure that I've got kind of a nice dark outline down at the bottom. So it doesn't, so it has some good detail to it, a little bit black down here. My pupils are dark enough. I'm thinking that that's pretty good. I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a little bit of a twinkle in the eye. So I'm going to go for a little bit of brown and white. I don't really want it too bright, but I definitely want a little twinkle. So a little brown and white, and I'm just going to bring this across that pupil a little bit. And then if you felt like you wanted to put some eyelashes in, if you've got a dog with some eyelashes, I got a little bit more brown and white on my brush, and you can just bring, oops, and a little bit more white here. You can bring just little tiny eyelashes down in through that front part if you want to. And then again, once we put all the rest of the stuff around the face, you can modify them even more, but I'm thinking that that's pretty good for now. So we're going to use our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the dark areas on the dog. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and I'm going to be using black, brown, burnt sienna, and my custom light burnt sienna. I call it the dark areas. It's in essence kind of the shadowy areas within the fur, or the darker fur if you want to go for some a patterned look on the dog. Any darker areas we can add now. It's going to be shadows underneath the ears. I'm going to have a little bit of darkness in that forehead, kind of where the muzzle meets the forehead, between those eyes, a little bit of darkness in through there. Maybe if you have wrinkles in the dog, you can put little dark marks where those wrinkles will be. I'll be putting a little bit of darkness to separate the face from the neck, and then we'll put a little bit of darkness in between our dog toes and then we'll get it to blend in with the rest, and maybe a couple little creases in the ears and stuff. I'm using my medium brush. You could certainly use a combination of your medium or your large brush, depending on how long you have your fur or what type of details you're looking to do. I know that I don't need to do a lot here, so I want to use my medium brush to control myself so I don't do too much. I'm going to be, again, doing dark areas underneath here, so that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with a bit of brown and just a teeny tiny bit of black paint on my brush, and I have very little bit on the tip of my brush. I want to create kind of the underside of this ear, or a shadow underneath this ear that is kind of shadowing on the head. So something like this. I'm just taking it and just rubbing it in a little bit underneath here. This is where you would close off any kind of visible gaps that you might have between sections. Like I had a visible gap between those two sections, so I just closed it off, and I want it to be darker underneath there and then just kind of fade out into the fur here. So if that's the case, maybe I pick up a little bit more brown in order to get that to blend out just a little bit more. And you can always pick up your original color as well. So if you wanted to, I just picked up a little bit of my light burnt sienna type of color, and that will help you to get it to blend in a little bit more. I'm not going for a long-haired dog, so I can get away a lot on this fur application with almost a rubbing type of technique. Once we get to the exterior coat of the fur, then I will definitely be using a little bit more of a purposeful swiping. But right now, when I'm doing these little shadow areas, I can do kind of a rubbing type of a technique. But I always, when I'm doing fur, am conscious about the direction that my brush is going in. So here I was going down kind of around that face. I'm going to go underneath here. This is going to be where the face meets the meets the neck. So I didn't wash my brush. I'm just using, oh, maybe I need a little bit more paint. A little bit of brown and black on my brush. I didn't wash my brush, so right now I have the brown and black, and if I had a little bit of remnants of the other color on there as well, so be it. And I'm going to get this all scooted right down into here. If I bump into my book pages, I'm okay with that, because I know I can just take my small brush and just re-clean up that line. I'm really okay with that. I'm going to think about where I want this kind of jaw line to go. So for me, it would kind of go somewhere in this vicinity. So I'm just going to faintly put something in there just so I don't lose the idea of where I want that to go. I don't necessarily need it to be dark per se, but I definitely want to know where that is. I'm going to now pick up on my dirty brush a little bit of burnt sienna, so I can get maybe a little wrinkle happening back in through here, or any darker version of fur that maybe I want on this backside. And when doing animals like this, it's really a matter of, you know, contours of the body, getting those dark areas. If you want things to dip in or look like they're underneath the body, putting those darker tones in there is going to help with that. I'm going to hit the pause right now while I have this darkness on, well, I'm always going to have darkness on my brush, but during this process, the three colors that I am flipping back and forth between are black, brown, and burnt sienna. When I go to do more on the face, I'll be using more of that base color that we use, but during these dark little marks, you can really use any combination of those three colors. So right now I've got probably all three of them on my brush right now, but mostly black and brown. Just be careful of the black, because again, that can really take over. As I'm doing these paws, I'm thinking the light source is up top. So I might just see a little bit in between those toes. I might even have a little shadow on the surface of the book, so you could pick up a little extra black and brown and put a little shadow on that book if you felt that it would warrant a shadow in through there. But again, not doing much, just a little tiny rubbing of some dark color between those toes. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is the side of the arm. I'll come over here with this color combination, and because my light is up top, I would definitely have some darkness at the bottom. Put it between these little cute toes, and then maybe a little bit on this side arm into there. That's cute. With this remnants on my brush, I think I'm gonna put maybe a little bit of dark areas up in the ears. I think I'm picking up brown and burnt sienna just to give myself maybe some little dips in the ears. A little bit on this bottom side of this ear. So this is just brown and burnt sienna on my brush right now. Again, not doing a whole heck of a lot, just, you know, putting little dark areas. Maybe this is just the underside, a little bit of that ear in through there. I'm going to put some in this forehead. So right between these eyes in through here, I can bring this up almost in like a curved type of way in order to show maybe the wrinkles or maybe a little bit of the dip in the head in through here. And again, I hardly have any paint on my brush. I'm really just looking to give a little bit of information. I'm going to pick up just a tiny bit more brown just to get just a couple more darker pieces in through here. And you could also pull it up. Now I'm using it more in a directional type of brush stroke around these eyes, getting it to really blend in with that base color. And again, when doing fur and things of this nature, getting everything to look like it works together is really a strong goal to have. If they look disconnected, it might not look as natural. I'm going to put a little bit of darkness in the fur right behind the nose as well. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black and my brown. I'm going to give this just a little bit of darkness right in through here, so it looks like it's blending almost in with that nose, or it's got that almost like little darker skin underneath there. That's looking pretty good. Maybe a little bit underneath here, just to give, again, some kind of color difference or variation. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to pick up some of my original color now with my dirty brush, just to kind of work the dark stuff off of my brush in a natural, neutral kind of way, which will allow me to make it look really like this connects to here and this connects to down here. I have my muzzle that I know that I want to identify as that, so I'm kind of bringing this dark, a little bit of darkness down here. I'm going to pick up a bit of burnt sienna now to transition this top part of the muzzle down. So I just, a little bit of burnt sienna on my dirty brush. And again, these are just thoughts as to the color variations on this specific dog. If your dog was lighter or darker, like I'm going to put some almost grayish white fur down in through here to indicate maybe this is an older dog, but you could certainly model this after your own dog, or one that you know that you want to have or have dreamed of having. I do know that this left side again is going to be lighter, so I don't necessarily need to do a lot over there. Just want to make sure this kind of blends in pretty naturally in through there. Maybe a little bit of more burnt sienna down underneath the neck in through here. There we go. And then let's see here. I think that's looking pretty good. We are going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this cute first coat on your adorable dog, you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the fur on the head. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are white, yellow, burnt sienna, and my custom light burnt sienna. And if I need any other colors, I'll use them and I'll let you know. What I'm going to be doing in this step is, in essence, putting the exterior coat of fur on, which is going to be a lighter and brighter version of what we've already have. But I don't want to overpaint it and get rid of all of the under coat that we've did. That's very important in order to give it some dimension. So as I'm going through this process, again, I'm using a smaller esque brush, but this brush will help me to get some good texture in the fur, but it will also help me to control as to not putting too much paint and over painting it. I'm going to be creating a light kind of lighter version of this in order to be our highlight color. I'm going to just be adding little bits of highlights on the ears, making sure that I have a full coverage on them, and maybe we'll give little kind of bits of fluff at the top of the ears. We're going to illuminate the left side of the face because the light is over here, so we're going to have a lot of lightness over here on the left-hand side. And we'll just be finishing the fur around this side of the face, putting on some lighter fur in through here to indicate perhaps an older dog. I have a couple of older dogs, and boy, does their fur goes kind of gray, but then definitely white towards that little muzzle area. So we'll be putting on another little layer of fur in through here. I am going to first start by creating my lighter version to use as my highlight color. This is it right in through here. How I got to that was I used my light burnt sienna and I added more raw sienna to it and a little bit of white to it. So this is creating, again, just a nice lighter version. Think of it like golden blonde hair. You can use that as a reference. I will also be using my raw sienna and white as some final little details or the individual kind of pieces of fur, but this will give me a progressive way to get from the darker version or from the undercoat to the outer coat. So that's going to be my color that I'm starting with, and I'm going to, again, I don't need a lot on my brush, so maybe just wipe it off on my paper towel to prevent me from overpainting, and I'm just going to start up in through here and giving myself that second layer of fur, giving me the direction of these smaller pieces or the exterior fur that I want to create in through here. I will also be putting some on the ears and things of that nature. And again, I'm not using a lot of paint on my brush right now because I don't want to overpaint. I'm going to be bringing in a little bit of this into these into this center area and allowing for the texture and for that first layer to really serve a purpose. I'm going to just keep picking up that lighter version, giving myself these little bits over on this side, and again, this left side is going to be the lightest. So as I go through this process, I know that I'm going to be adding quite a bit more lightness over here, but again, this just starts my process and allows for me to get a nice believable look to it. Along the edges, if you want to just kind of tap your brush to give you a little bit of texture as it meets the exterior, that will make it look a little bit more natural as well. And I'm going to just kind of put quite a bit over here on the nose. I'm doing more tapping right now as I'm getting toward on the muzzle, so it doesn't look like it's as long of fur as, say, the head region. And then again, just kind of tapping this a little bit on this side, so I've got some good lightness. And as I go towards this right hand side, I might leave a little bit of that darkness in through there, so it looks like it's on the darker side of the head. That looks pretty good. Over in through here, I'm going to add a little bit of this color as well, again, just to kind of start the process of that lighter fur that I'm going to want to put almost like a gray type of look on this area through here. And again, just lightly kind of tapping it with the tip of my brush, knowing that this hair is going to be a little bit shorter and, you know, just kind of coming off that little edge of the face in through here. And then along this side over here, maybe the fur is a little bit in a more directional type of a way going over on that side. Over here, again, I'm just using this to tell myself the direction and the shape of the head, in through here. And you can see as it's drying, the color gets a little bit darker because it has that dark base underneath it. But this helps me to, again, just build my way to the lightness. I got a little bit back in through here. Again, I don't need to do much. Give myself a little bit of exterior kind of look to the fur in through here, giving myself that textural type of element. And then maybe just a little bit more on this face and through here, so it looks a little bit different than the neck region. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going up to these ears, going to add a little bit of this lightness up towards the top part of these ears, give it a little bit more shape in through here. I'm going to add a little bit of this fun fur kind of coming up off the little tippy top in through there. Same thing over on this ear, just kind of allowing for some fun fluffiness to occur in through there, and then bringing this lightness over this top in through here. And I'm adding these lighter areas where especially on the ears, where I feel that they would be illuminated from that light source. So I'm going to bring a little bit down in through here and just bring it back. And again, trying not to overpaint. So if you come to a point where you're like, wow, that was a lot of paint on there, just take a breath and just wash your brush or let it dry for a minute. A little bit of this lightness over here on this ear. And then I'm going to make sure that everything kind of rolls together. So like right in through here, I think I want to pick up a little bit of my burnt sienna on my dirty brush. Before I start adding the bright highlights, I want to make sure that everything has its due layers. So before I add those final bright notes to it, I do like to get at least a full second coat on there. I just picked up a little bit more of my burnt sienna. Make sure, because this didn't look like it was fully, like it had a full layer on it. And that, making sure that I have that full second layer before I finalize those highlights really just, again, helps me to make it look more natural. It helps me to make sure that I don't miss any spots and that I've got it fully rendered everywhere that I want it to. So that's looking cute. I think now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to start adding the brightest of the bright highlights. I'm going to be using a little bit of my raw sienna, and white is going to give me just a light yellow type of a color. And this is going to be my lightest fur, and then I'll just put little white highlights on after that. So I've got my light yellow, and this is going to be where I really start to tell the contour of the eye. So I just got a little bit of my light yellow in through here. The light is over to the left, so this is going to help me contour this eye in through here. I've got this over here where the light is to the left. So you can see my process just keeps repeating itself, and I work my way towards the light fur. Right now I know what direction my fur is. We've established that. So because I know what direction that fur is coming off of the head, it allows me to just kind of cruise through this, making sure that I emphasize the lightness on the side that the light source is at. So I can, every time I go to add a lighter layer, I'm taking up less real estate. So now I'm taking up more just this section and this section. Of course, I'm going to go over here on the left side of the face as well to get these bright notes in through here. And then every time I do a lighter layer, again, I'm taking up less area on the face or on that whatever it is that I'm doing. So again, just adding my lightness in through here, maybe a little bit more on the bridge of this nose in through here, definitely maybe some more lightness over here, and then touch on the ears, touch up in through here. And again, I will add just a little bit of white in a minute, but this is telling me exactly where that light source is now and where the fur is being illuminated the most. And of course, after you get this done, you might find that you want to go back in and put more yellow in it or put more burnt sienna in it, whatever color is really speaking to you. You can certainly adjust it in whatever way you want. I definitely want a little bit of this light fur over on this side. And if it's too light, like I felt like it was a little too light, I just picked up one of the previous colors with my light yellow. So you can certainly use previous layered colors in order to get this to look as bright as you want it or as subtle as you want it. That's looking pretty good. He's looking super cute. I don't know if it's a he or she, but we're going to call it a he at the moment. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white now on my dirty brush to give myself a little bit of some light. Actually, now I'm picking up some of my tan. I was a little bit too light for me. So I picked up some of my tan from my book to give myself this lighter, kind of older kind of fur down in through here. I don't necessarily want it to go all the way white because I've got my whiskers and stuff coming in a little bit. So I backed off on the white and picked up a little bit of tan. Again, just trying not to overdo it. And then once I've got this done, I'm going to use this same tan over here on the left-hand side, maybe with a little bit of white too. So tan plus white, just give me these bright notes on this left-hand side. And then I would let it dry. I'm going to put just a little bit more white up and through here. I'm going to let it dry and see if I need to do any more filling. And if I feel that I do, I certainly will. Like I might end up putting a little bit more lightness over here on the left-hand side. I might, you know, as it's drying, I might find that I want more little flecks of the bright white. Like right now I got a little bit of white on my brush giving me just this little essence of this fun little fluff on the top of the ears. And you can certainly do the same on your part. Let it dry. If you feel that you want a little bit more, like maybe I put a little bit at the top of this nose just to give it a little bit of that extra dimensional element to the fur above the nose. Those are the things that will help it look the most realistic. Layer on fur. The more layers you put, the better it will look. And then once you've got that done, we're going to use, let's see, we're going to use the same brush for the next step. So you can wash it and dry it after I put a little more detail around my nose here. I just picked up a little bit of black just for the record. I see I want a little bit darkness around my nose. And then you can wash and dry this brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna paint the paws. I'm gonna be using my medium brush, and the colors that I'm gonna use are my fur colors plus white. So whatever fur colors you used during your fur making process, that's what you'll use during this step. I'm in essence just gonna be going from the base coat to white, so whatever the progressively lighter colors were. So for me, I started with this light burnt sienna that we had created, and then I went to this kind of golden tannish color, and then I went to the light yellow, which was for the final highlights, and then white. So I in essence have 3 type of colors. So I'm going to start with my light burnt sienna, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself some fur texture, which means I'm just going to kind of tap my brush. I want it to overlap the edges, so I have what appears to be fur overlapping the book, and that I've got some soft edges along the side as well. So again, just kind of tapping it to give myself, make sure I'm overlapping that book so it doesn't look like a firm line. And then I'm going to go into my next color, which is this light golden color, and I don't need a lot on my brush, and I'm just going to put it progressively towards the top of each toe and of the paw itself. So I just want it to go lighter and lighter as I go up towards the top of the foot. So that way it'll look like the light is having an effect on it. I'm going to now pick up my light yellow color in order to get this top region up in through here, and I'm just kind of tapping and overlapping it onto the subsequent color, so that way they look like they are fur that's just laying on top of each other. I'm leaving this on purpose to be dark. I feel that that would remain dark being in that little crevice. And before I add the final highlight on this, I want to give it a little bit of a minute to dry. I'm going to go ahead and onto the other paw and get the paw to this stage before we add the bright highlight. So I'm just going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to start back with my light burnt sienna. and I'm going to start down at the bottom, giving myself this little bit of overlapping edges to the book so it will make it look like real fur, because I know that all dogs like to read sometimes. So we want to make sure it looks as real as possible. And just going to tap this over the edges, and kind of, you can even tap it over that shadow area a little bit as well. That again will make it look even more natural. Now I'm picking up the light golden color, which is the lighter version of what we just did, and I'm going to work my way towards the top side of that fur in through here, and again leaving a little bit darker down at the bottom. So this is just that light golden color, and then I'm going to pick up the light yellow on my dirty brush. So this was a combination of the raw sienna and white that got to this color combination, and that's going to get me that top portion, maybe a little bit on this little toe as well. So just again lighter up at the top, and it gets darker and darker down to the bottom. Now I'm going to flip feet. I'm going to go over to that other foot and put a nice highlight on here. So I know that it's still probably a little wet. I'm going to use my white to start, and if I need to go into that light yellow, I certainly would. So I just have white on my dirty brush. I did not wash my brush, and I want this to be in the area that pops out to the viewer the most. So I don't need to put it just at the top in through here. I want it to look like the paw kind of pops out to us. So I'm going to put it in the contour, or the area that I feel would be sticking out the most to the viewer. And then once I've got it on here, I will get it to blend a little bit with maybe my light yellow. I think I'm going to pick up the light yellow, which I'm doing right now, picking up the light yellow just again so I can progressively get it to blend with it with the neighboring fur. And then again, I would let it dry, see if there's any additional modifications that I need to or want to make to it, but this just gets it into a super cute status. We're going to put little fingernails or toenails on in a minute, but this gets us started. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other paw. So I'm going to start with my white on my dirty brush and just start up towards the top. So you can get pretty aggressive with the white up towards the top and then just kind of blend it down and the top of these toes, or that are closest to the top of your canvas. That will help to make this look nice and fluffy and realistic, or semi-realistic. And then I'm going to pick up some of that light yellow color on my dirty brush just to get this to fade down and make sure that it blends as much as I want it to. And then we are going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you get this done, we'll do the toes or the toenails in the next step. I think, and that's looking pretty good in through here. So you can put this brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint whiskers and toenails. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, and white. And if I need to use any other colors, I certainly will, and I'll let you know. So what I'm going to, in essence, do first is I'm going to be putting in some little whisker holes. So I'll be putting a lot of little black dots in through here. While that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and do some toenails. Excuse me. And then I'll come back and put all the little whiskers around the face. I'm going to start with a tiny bit of black paint on my small brush, and I'm going to give myself just a whole bunch of little tiny black dots. So I'm going to just kind of tap my brush so I have little black dots. You could certainly do yours in little rows if you want yours to emulate a specific kind of dog that you're doing. If you want to put it in, some dogs have really evident kind of rows to their whisker hole. So if you have one of those dogs that you're trying to emulate, feel free to do so. On this left-hand side, I'm not doing much because this side, the left-hand side is going to be in the light. So it doesn't need much. And if you wanted to use that black for anything else while you're here, like I just am putting a little bit around the edge of that nose, I feel like that needed to be a little bit more visible. Now, while these little holes are drying, I think, and that's as many as I want. While these are drying, I'm going to go ahead and put my toenails on. I've got a little bit of black paint on my brush. I'm going to just put kind of shorter toenails, but I'm going to have them sticking in the fur just a little bit in through there. And I'm just going to have them kind of coming out at a little bit of a curve. Again, model it after a dog that you know. If yours has long toenails, put long ones. If it has short ones, put short ones. One of my dogs is actually missing one of his the toenail bed, so he's got a missing toe. So if you wanted to do one like that, feel free to do so. Just make it whatever you'd like. I'm gonna go ahead and do that same process for the black on the other toes in through here. And then I'll go and put a little highlight on them. And if you wanted to, you could certainly put little fur around them, which I might do that as well, but just kind of putting the little nail coming out the toe like this, and then just kind of pulling it to a little bit of a point at various angles. You know, you don't have to put them all coming out the same angle. I'm going to wash and dry my brush. And I'm going to put a little bit of brown and white on my brush at the same time. This is going to give me a little highlight to my toenails. And I'm just going to give a quick little swipe down the curve of that toenail. And of course you could, at this point, if you wanted to, you could take a little bit of white or a little bit of your fur color, and you could certainly tap around that toenail if you felt that you wanted a little bit of that fur to overhang the toenail. You could certainly go ahead and do that as well, just for that added little effect. So brown and white is on my brush. Give myself a little highlight. Oh, that was a little crooked toenail. We'll just kind of straighten that out. There we go. And a little one in through here. And my trick is I'm just not painting the whole black area. So I'm just painting a smaller area than I did the toenail itself. I just picked up a tiny bit of white to give these little pieces of fur right around in through here. And again, this is probably an excessive step. You don't really need to do these little pieces of fur if you don't want to. Then I'm going to go ahead and put some whiskers on. So small brush, white paint is where I'm going to be with my whiskers. These whiskers, there's a lot of them and they're really short, so you don't have to worry about long, really straight or perfect whiskers. I just put white paint on my brush with a little bit of liquid medium or water, and I'm just going to put a whole bunch of little ones coming out this entire muzzle area, or by down below the nose. In various directions. You can make them thicker or thinner. You could have them, coming down behind the book in through here. So just tapping in this white paint in these curved kind of lines. And again, they don't have to come at exactly the same angle. So, maybe you have one that kind of sticks up a little bit. Maybe you have one that kind of sticks down a little bit. Just make as many as you feel are, as strong and representational as you want them to be. And you can have just lots of little tiny ones in through there. So I'm just kind of tapping and getting as much in through there as I want. And I'm going to come over to this right hand side and do the same thing. So I have my white paint on my brush, and I'm going to have a bunch. I'm going to just kind of start in through here and just kind of give myself lots of these short kind of curvy little lines. And again, I reload my brush often, so I have a pretty good amount of paint on my brush. And if you're having trouble making the more narrow lines, add a little bit of liquid medium, or you can even use a smaller brush. And then I'm just going to kind of keep at it until I feel that I've got enough of these little white pieces, and I've got some coming out in through here, and I just kind of keep going in a thoughtful process. They would definitely kind of come out with a little bit of a curve, and if you feel like you go too far or you do too much, just back off for a minute and collect your thoughts, and then you can come back with some of your darker fur color. You can get it to intermingle with your darker fur color. I'm actually putting a little bit of this coming up in through here as if it might be a little bit of the white fur that I was referring to earlier. So you can turn these whiskers into light fur as well. So just, you know, the longer they are, the more that they're going to resemble whiskers. The shorter they are, the more they'll resemble fur. And then you can fiddle with this as much as you want. And once you get done, we are going to be using this small brush for the next step. So you can wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint some reading glasses. I'm going to use my small brush. The colors I'm using are brown, black, and white. And again, this is definitely customizable. So if you want red glasses, paint red glasses. If you want them green, paint them green. Paint them whatever color you'd like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with just a brown base for the glasses, and then we'll add some highlights and shadows and little glare on the glass, and then we'll be done. Again, you could certainly draw this out if you'd like to. I'm going to be doing my first layer with paint, but you could certainly draw yours out. I'm going to load my brush with brown paint to give myself where I want them to be placed. So I definitely want them to look like they're balanced on the dog's nose. I'm going to come between the eyes and about halfway between the eyes and the top of the nose. So somewhere right about here is where I'm going to give myself the bridge to my glasses. So, and I've got them kind of tipped a little bit because the head is tipped a little bit. So that's going to be my start. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of plan out where I want the top edges to go. I definitely know that I want the arms of my glasses to come out, my ears. I want them to be kind of tucked behind the ear. So I'm going to have this one kind of come in like this, and the tip of my glass, the corner of my glasses is going to be right about here. So a little bit to the right of my eye and down almost kind of parallel with this marker in through here. And then on this side, I'm going to, again, it's tipped, so it might not be as wide as this one. I'm going to come to the left from here. I'm going to go maybe right about where the tip of my ear is and up just a little bit from here. So somewhere right about in through here. Now I can connect my dots. I can take this and connect it to here, but I'm going to give it a little bit of shape to it. So I'm going to take from here, just go up just a little bit and over. So that'll give me a little bit of shape as on the frame, as opposed to it just being straight. So take it from here, curve it up just a little bit, and then I can come directly over to my marker in through here. And you might desire wide framed glasses or narrow frame glasses. Whatever floats your boat is totally fine. I'm going to most likely go with as wide as this brush is going to do it. And if it's thin, it's thin. If it's thick, it's thick. I just kind of am using consistent pressure as I'm making those lines, so that way the width of the frame will be similar. And now all I need to do is connect this corner to here and this corner to here. And you can make it go down as far as you want or as shallow as you want. It's up to you. I'm going to bring it right from this corner in through here and then dip it down and bring it back up to over in through here. Again, yours could be square framed. They could be like a cat type of a shape with the pointy corners on them. Whatever works for you, which I guess would be kind of funny. Cat rimmed glasses on a dog. Not that this isn't funny enough, but if you want to amp up the funny, put some cat eared glasses on. Anyways, so I'm going to just kind of do this one mimicking similar shape to what I had on the other one. And again, you can model it after whatever kind of glasses that you would like. That's looking pretty good. And if your edges aren't perfect, but you know, just know that you can make your frames a little bit wider. I'm going to do a little bit of a highlight on them in a minute. I'm just kind of slowing down so I can get, I keep reloading my brush so I can get kind of a nice clean edge to it. My brown does tend to be a little bit transparent, so I might need a layer or two on it in order to get it so it's not transparent, but my highlight and shadow will probably take care of it. And then I'm just going to take it from this corner and bring it up to the head in through here. If you wanted to give this a slight curve, like some glasses have, you could certainly do that, or just do it straight. Whatever is your comfort zone is totally fine. I'm going to bring it to here, and then I'm going to maybe thicken this edge where it meets the corner of my glass or the corner of the frame. And again, model it after whatever you would like. If you want that corner to be wider or thinner, that's fine. And then this one I'm going to have, it's got to come out in through here, and I'm going to have this one sneak in. I'm going right like up into this area, up in through here. So I'm going to just take this, and I keep my eye on my prize, which is the other marker. Just give myself a diagonal line in through here, and then just do whatever I need to do at that corner to make it look whatever way I want it to. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a tiny bit of black paint and brown paint on my brush. So black and brown. This is where I'm going to add a little bit of shadow or darkness to a couple of the areas on my frames. So this is black and brown. So I can make them a little bit darker as they go into where underneath the ears. This will give me a little bit of depth to my glasses in through there, and I'm thinking that's pretty good. Maybe a little bit, I'm going to pick up a little bit more brown just to make sure that I've got this in fully executed. All right, that looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight on the frames. So I washed and dried my brush. I'm picking up brown and white at the same time, about equal parts of both, and I'm going to give myself just these little highlights on the framework. So I'm going to have a little highlight in through here. I'm going to have a little highlight in through here. Again, I know my light source is over to the left, so it would make sense for me to have a little bit more on the left side of the frame, but you could also have a little bit down on the bottom edge of the frame. That would definitely make sense to have a little bit in through there. Definitely some on this top side in through here. Maybe a little bit on this corner in through here. And then once I've got that on, oh, I definitely need a little bit on the top side of this one. I just picked up a little bit more white. Once I've got that on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure that all the brown is fully rendered. So there's a couple spots that I need to add a second coat. So I washed my brush, just picked up a little bit more brown, just so my frames are done before I move on to the next little detail that I want to do on it. So I picked up a little bit more brown just to make sure that I don't have any see-through spots. Like I felt like I had a little see-through in through there. And that's looking, there we go. That makes me happy. Now what I'm going to do, I have brown on my brush. I'm going to add a tiny bit of water and black. So I have brown, black, and water on my brush because I want to put a shadow on the face. This is definitely a use more water kind of step. So I have a lot of fluidity on my brush. So my paint is really see-through. I can always add more paint if I need to, but I'd rather err on the side of caution and have it very see-through. I'm going to put a little shadow underneath the bridge of the glasses in through here, and if you feel it's too dark, just quickly pick up a little bit more water on your brush and you can certainly dull it down and make it a little bit more see-through. I'm going to put a little bit underneath this frame on the face in through here, so this will make it look like the glasses are casting a shadow on the face. And again, I need that paint to be see-through so it can see the fur underneath it, so something like that will help. I'm going to do a little bit of this shadow of this arm of the glass down in through here. So again, a little bit of black, brown, and water. It's hardly detectable, so I'm going to add just a little bit more. Again, be cautious first and add more paint later if you need to. I just want to make sure that I can see it because there's no sense in putting it here if you can't see it. So that's looking pretty good. And then if you felt that you could, needed anywhere else, you could certainly do that. But that's looking pretty good for me. I'm feeling like that's believable. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a little glaze or shine on my glasses. I'm going to be using white plus water on my brush, and not a lot. I just have an itty bitty bit on my brush, and I have water on my brush as well. I'm going to go up towards the top of the lens itself, put that white on there and then rub it out. So again, this is see-through. You're able to see everything that's underneath it, and you can just kind of manipulate it and put it as bright as you want it, but I definitely want to be able to see through it, so I'm not using a lot of paint at all. Again, I can always add more, but it's tough to take away once you've got it on there. So I just picked up a little bit more paint so we could see it. And then I'm just rubbing it out. So white plus a little bit of water. And if you're nervous about a step like this, definitely, you know, practice on a little piece of paper or a piece of, you know, canvas or something, or the back or something. Now, once I've got that on there, now I can be more generous with my white. I just picked up a little bit more white, and I can put just a little kind of bright reflection perhaps of the light source on there. And then fiddle with it all you want. We are going to be using this small brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush. I'm going to sign this one in the bottom left with black paint. You could certainly sign yours anywhere you'd like. I like to use my initials for my signature, but you could use your first name or the date or a symbol. Whatever you want for your identifying mark to be is totally fine, because it's your painting and you get to sign it however you would like. And that's going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a really fun canine image or animal image. Maybe you changed yours into a cat or something. And I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.